Back in action. Yeah, it's good to see the Looney Tunes once again. Wait a second. This isn't the Looney Tunes film. This is some other film that is on Netflix now that stars like Jamie Foxx and Cameron Diaz. Really? They actually got Cameron Diaz back? In case you're not aware, Cameron Diaz has not been in a major film for quite a while. I think the last major film she was in was like that version of Annie they did, which also had Jamie Foxx in it now that I think about it. Is there a connection? I don't know. Okay, so Back in Action. Is it good? I'm gonna have to say no. It's pretty highly, I mean, it's like, Netflix has like movies that are like top 10 movies this week or something like that. It's on it, and it's been on it for like, I don't know, since it came out. I mean, because honestly, how can you resist? This is a film that I think has a somewhat decent premise, but it has been done before. This film feels like it's a mix between the film Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Spy Kids. The only difference is, Spy Kids was definitely written for the younger viewers, but it's essentially the same premise because, and I'm going to get into the premise here, Jamie Foxx and Cameron Diaz's characters were both spies, and we see them, I don't know, before their kids were born. And they had just started dating, and they were on a mission that went badly. And honestly, I will have to say, the opening scene where they're on this plane is both good and bad. I say it's good because it has more action than I really thought a film like this was going to have. This is a very big budget film. I did not really expect it to have the budget that it did. It has some really good action sequences in it, but I will have to say on the whole, most of this film felt like just a Xerox of a Xerox. So, okay, so here's the thing. I was kind of bothered by this film, and I was watching it, and I thought they were on a plane that I thought was maybe sort of like a G6. Yeah, I know. Okay, I set myself up for that one. In other words, something like a private plane that is smaller than your regular, I don't know, like a 747 or something like that, regular passenger. But the problem is when they were showing shots of this plane spiraling out of control, it looked like the plane model they were using was somewhat like a 747. And I kind of felt that the special effects department did not get the memo as far as what the setting was on this. In other words, I felt like the plane at the beginning of this film had the opposite effect of the TARDIS in Doctor Who. In other words, it was smaller on the inside. And I kind of went like, so there's they have this big of a private plane to themselves? To me, I kind of went like, I get it, they're spies. I mean, they might be given a special ride like this, but I kind of went like, this is kind of hard to believe. And then what happens to the plane is even more harder to believe, which I kind of went like, oh, wow, this is like, this is one of those over-the-top action sequences that I kind of like, really. I really do like over-the-top action sequences. I'd say it's a weakness, but what else do you go to see the movies for? It's just like stuff blowing up and just destroying in all ways. Yeah, and Back in Action has it in spades. What can I say? So basically, at the beginning of this film, when this plane crashes, they realize like, hey, they're going to think that we're dead. Why don't we take advantage of this and retire? And I get the feeling that, I don't know, these two spies have some sort of, I don't know, they must have some sort of cash cushion or something like that, because I think we see them later on. They're in the suburbs, and, they've got 2 kids now. And now here's a really bad rule of writing with kids. This always happens. In most shows and TV movies I've seen, when the parents have 2 kids, there's one kid who's kind of always nerdy and shy and is into technology and stuff like that. And then you have another kid who's ultra sociable and they can't seem to keep track of them because they're always out of the house with their friends. And then if they have a third kid, that there's usually some mix of the middle of the 2 of them. And think any TV family and you'll get this model. And here's the thing. The kids in this film are actually pretty good. But they do resemble, like I said, Spy Kids. And this is one of those films in which, like, you can tell what's going to happen in this film. It's called Back in Action. Why are they back in action? because their old life catches up to them. And usually when you see a film where a character is retired, usually their old life catches up with them. And that is just sort of a Hollywood cliche. In this case, it doesn't play out very well. And the manner in which it got there is kind of dumb. Essentially, what happens is Jamie Foxx and Cameron Diaz discover that their daughter is at a club that she shouldn't be at because technically she's underage. And what they do is then they go in and they try and get her out. Apparently their friends or somebody doesn't want her to take her out, which to me, I'm going like, you shouldn't really stop this. You're not going to be looking like a good guy if you stop this, or even a cool guy. And Jamie Foxx and Cameron Diaz essentially whipped their butts. But unfortunately, video footage of that surfaced, and so they were able to be found by their old boss. And they say like, hey, you have something that belongs to us. Now, something I forgot to mention in this film, which is easy to forget, is that Jamie Foxx and Cameron Diaz's last mission as spies was to get this thing, a key. And apparently this key can essentially just get you into anything. Like you can just plug it in your USB or something like that. And if you wanted to, I don't know, like open a dam somewhere, or if you wanted to open a floodgate, or if you wanted to crack essentially you could get into anything. It's like that thing that was in the movie Sneakers. So essentially, so Jamie Foxx apparently didn't destroy this key, but he left it with Cameron Diaz's mom, who is in England. Now, Cameron Diaz's mom is played by Glenn Close, and apparently her character was also a spy. So Cameron Diaz's character was apparently brought up in this sort of spy sort of thing. So she essentially became a spy, kind of sort of like a family inheritance thing. And so when these two get outed essentially as spies, they have to go on the run, and they decide to go to England because, well, that's where the key is. And they figure if they can get the key back, and they can give it to the authorities, they can get immunity, and then they can have their old lives back. It's a pretty good plan, and it makes a lot of sense, but here's the thing. They have to lie to their kids. And at one point in time, I think they have a really cool car chase scene where a car just really flies up. And honestly, I really actually liked the scene. I actually thought, wow, this is actually pretty good, action-wise. But when they have to lie to their kids so much, I mean, that they have to jump and just kind of go to England, which means like they must have had passports set up for all of them, which felt weird to me that you could just up and jump and go to England. I feel like you couldn't really even do that now without being something would, it would be a bit more time consuming than this film wants to show this thing. And I really feel like they would have been hunted down probably before they even got to the airport, really. This feels like one of those films in which I really had a hard time suspending my disbelief that they would have gotten this far. So, and once they get to England, they're found out because their kids want to use the internet. Gosh darn them. And there's even a part where they're still trying to lie to their kids about who they were. And I felt like they really should have. There's several scenes in which they decide like to continue this lie. And to me, I kind of went like, yeah, you probably shouldn't do that, but movie's got a movie and that's what you do. So I kind of went like, at that point in time, I kind of went like, oh, please don't do this. Please don't do this thing where you're carrying on the lie. And of course, they got to mention things like why they're so good at fighting and stuff like that. And I think at one point in time, one of the kids say, our parents can't be spies, they're not cool enough, which is a line directly ripped from Spy Kids. So I get the feeling like whoever wrote this film had seen Spy Kids and wasn't trying to copy it, but he just couldn't help but kind of do some of this stuff. And the banter back and forth of them between Fox and Diaz was, of course, similar to, say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the Brad Pitt Angelina Jolie movie, not the show. But yeah, I kind of feel like this film kind of falls flat. The ending sequence, I have to admit, I mean, they get Glenn Close involved, but it doesn't really help much. And I really don't like it. There's a scene where the kid like is playing with throwing stars, and he scores like a bullseye like the first thing. And I'm going like, why would he know how to do that? I don't like it when characters in films have talents that are just there. It just doesn't make any sense. So on the whole, I'm not really sure I really like this film, but if you like action films, you might like Back in Action.